Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today I'd like to talk to you about training. So at a certain point, if you elect to pursue some sort of skill improvement, skill development, that's going to require some training. And training is a very broad term. So what I'm going to try to do is illustrate what I believe are the steps that you need to have in place in order to actually get better. So if that's the goal, if our goal is to try to improve, the first thing that we have to do is we have to know where we are. Where am I currently? What's my skill level that I have right now? And there's a lot of ways that you can do that, but that's basically going to be in the form of an assessment. With this assessment, you can take a step back and objectively look at it and say, okay, well, I'm good here and I need work here. And that's really what we're going to be looking at. It's going to be divided into those two groups. You're either going to find that your strengths are solid or your weaknesses are mounting. Whatever the case, what I recommend is to try to avoid focusing on your strengths. That's a big problem. Everybody wants to do it. You're like, oh man, I'm really good at this. I just want to keep doing that. I get it. I've done it myself, but that's really not the best way to improve. The best way to improve is to shift your focus over here towards the weaknesses. So now that I've identified those weaknesses through the assessment, what do I do? So my recommendation is that you really isolate what is it specifically about that weakness. Is it my precision at distance? Is it my shooting speed at close range? Is it perhaps my draw stroke? Is it perhaps my gun handling during a reload? What specifically was the weakness? Once you've identified that, now it allows you to kind of narrow in on what you should be doing. What you find is that there's a plethora of various drills that you can find online. And that's the problem. There's probably too many. What I mean by that is like you're not really sure what is really going to be useful for you once you identify what that weakness is. So what I recommend is that you play with a couple. Once you have set up a practice session, and I itemize my practice sessions very detailed, like once you have done that, practice, and you want to try to work at improving through that practice session. And it's baby steps, one little bite at a time. Now, once you have practiced, eventually you're going to have to reevaluate or reassess to determine whether or not things are going the way it should. And if you find that you're still not really seeing those weaknesses improve, that's where you might need to take a step back and say, okay, this is outside of my actual ability to correct. I might need to go to a third party. And that could be in the form of private instruction, that could be in the form of attending a training class, that could be a lot of other things. But you have to at some point recognize, all right, this is more than I can handle, more than I can do. And then at that point you go and you may find that there were other weaknesses that you just weren't aware of because you were looking at it from a very, very narrow scope. Now that you're looking at it from a broader picture, you might identify more things. And as you start to improve upon your performance, the most important thing is that you come back and reassess. So if you're paying attention, you've heard me say reassess several times. And the thing I try to get across to people is whatever it is, if your skill development is valuable to you, then it's got to be measurable. Whatever is valuable has to be measurable. So at some point you're going to have to realize, okay, I've got to be able to measure this. And that means that I've got to be able to observe it. And I've got to be able to figure that out through my training drills. I got to be able to observe what it is that I'm trying to measure. Then the last piece to that puzzle is the repeatability. And that's why this training cycle works so well, is because my strengths are something that I'm able to repeat. If I've satisfied the minimum standard for those strengths, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm repeating the performance, I'm good. But then I'm lacking that performance over here in those weak areas, and that's where I need to work on. So as it relates to the itemized or individual skills, that's a whole other ballgame. But pick a couple that you feel are super important to you and start working on them and create this nice cycle of improvement that allows you to test, practice, retest, and then redevelop. And then just keep working on this nice cycle until you find that your strengths now are a little bit more even-keeled. All right, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them down below. Until then, take care and stay safe.